Welcome to Echoes of Fear. Tonight, 3 true horror stories await you. Stories whispered in the rain, stories lost in the woods, and stories that followed families into their own homes. These are not legends. They are not myths. They are experiences, real encounters that left people shaken and scarred forever. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and listen closely, because once you enter this darkness, there is no turning back. Story 1: The Hitchhiker in the Rain. A tale of a weary traveller, a stormy night, and a passenger who was never truly there. It was close to midnight when David steered his car along the winding highway in Oregon. The storm had been raging for hours, sheets of rain hammering against the windshield, the wipers fighting to keep up. His headlights cut through the darkness in weak beams, revealing nothing but empty road, trees swaying violently in the wind, and the constant blur of water. David was exhausted. He had spent the entire day traveling for work, his briefcase tossed carelessly on the back seat, his tie loosened, his eyes heavy. The only thing on his mind was reaching home, crawling into bed, and forgetting the storm outside. But then he saw her. At first, it was just a flicker at the edge of his headlights, a pale figure on the side of the road. As he drove closer, his heart skipped. It was a young woman, standing alone in the pouring rain, soaked from head to toe. Her hair clung to her face, her thin white dress plastered to her skin. She raised one trembling hand, as though asking for help. David slowed down, unease prickling at his neck. He knew the dangers of stopping for strangers, especially at night. But there was something about her fragile, desperate, that made it impossible for him to drive on. Against his better judgment, he pulled over. The girl opened the passenger door without a word. Water dripped from her clothes onto the seat, forming dark stains on the fabric. She sat stiffly, her gaze fixed forward. Her skin was pale, almost translucent in the glow of the dashboard lights. David cleared his throat, trying to mask his nervousness. "Where are you headed?" The girl slowly turned her head, her lips parting just enough to whisper an address on the outskirts of town. Her voice was faint, almost drowned by the storm, but he caught the words. As he drove, the silence pressed in around them. He stole glances at her from the corner of his eye. Her face was expressionless, her eyes dark and distant, as if she were looking far beyond the car, far beyond him. The only sound was the rain pounding on the roof and the steady rhythm of the wipers. Minutes felt like hours. The storm seemed heavier now, the darkness deeper. Finally, the car rolled to a stop in front of a small old house, half hidden by trees. The porch light flickered weakly, almost as if it too were about to be swallowed by the storm. Relieved, David turned to the girl. "We're here," he said softly. But the seat beside him was empty. His breath caught in his throat. The passenger door had never opened. The only trace of her presence was the wet footprints on the floor mat and the faint smell of rain. Heart racing, David stumbled out of the car and ran to the front door. He knocked, his knuckles echoing in the storm. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman wrapped in a shawl. Her eyes were tired, her face lined with years of sorrow. David stammered, describing the girl he had picked up. The old woman's expression shifted from confusion to recognition, and finally to grief. With a trembling voice, she whispered, "That was my daughter. She died in an accident on that very road 10 years ago tonight." The storm roared louder, as though it had been waiting for those words. And David realized he had not given a ride to a lost girl, but to a memory that refused to rest. Story 2: The Disappearing Camper. A night in the forest, a missing friend, and a return no one could explain. It was the middle of summer, when four friends decided to spend a weekend camping in the forests of British Columbia. The forest was dense, filled with towering pines that blocked most of the sunlight, but the group was excited. They wanted isolation, a place where the only sounds were the crackling of a campfire and the whispers of the wind. That night, after hours of laughter, roasting marshmallows, and telling ghost stories, they finally crawled into their tents. The fire burned low, the forest around them fell silent, and the only noise left was the distant call of an owl. When the sun rose the next morning, everything looked normal, except for one thing. Jacob's tent was zipped shut, but empty. His backpack was still inside, untouched. His shoes were neatly placed by the fire pit, exactly where he had left them. It was as if he had simply vanished into the air. At first, the friends searched, calling his name, combing through the woods. Hours passed with no sign of him. Panic set in, and they finally hiked back to the ranger station to call the authorities. Police and search teams scoured the forest for days, but Jacob was never found. Not a footprint, not a torn piece of clothing, nothing. Weeks later, one of the campers, Mark, woke in the middle of the night to a sound outside his bedroom window, a faint scratching. He rubbed his eyes and listened. The sound grew louder, insistent. He finally pulled back the curtain, expecting to see a branch scraping against the glass. But what he saw made his blood run cold. Jacob was standing there. His clothes were the same ones he had worn the night he disappeared. His skin was pale, almost grey, and his eyes were hollow black voids. His lips moved slowly, forming words that no sound carried. Mark froze, his breath caught in his throat, unable to move. And then, as suddenly as he appeared, Jacob was gone. The police were called again, but nothing was found outside the window. No footprints in the soil, no sign of anyone standing there. To this day, Jacob's disappearance remains unsolved. Some believe he simply got lost in the forest. Others whisper that something older, something darker, claimed him that night, and that he sometimes comes back, just long enough for his friends to remember the terror of that camping trip. Story 3. The Watcher's Letter. A family's dream home turned into a nightmare of surveillance and fear. When Derek and Maria bought their dream home in Westfield, New Jersey, they thought their lives were finally falling into place. It was a beautiful 2-story house with a wide porch, a big yard for the kids, and quiet streets lined with tall oak trees. It was perfect. Just days after moving in, a letter arrived in the mailbox. The envelope was plain, but the handwriting was strange, shaky, uneven. Derek opened it at the kitchen table, expecting a warm welcome from a neighbour. Instead, the message inside sent a chill down his spine. Dearest new neighbour, welcome to the neighbourhood. My family has watched this house for decades, and now it is my turn. I am the Watcher. I see that you've brought young blood into my home. Have they started to play in the yard yet? Have they explored all the rooms? I will be watching to see who sleeps in which bedroom. The house is hungry, and I will feed it. Maria dropped the letter as soon as she read it. They tried to laugh it off, maybe a prank, some twisted joke. But more letters came, each one more detailed than the last. I can see you. The windows are wide and open. You never know which one I am watching from. I know what time you turn off the lights. I know when your children leave for school. Don't let them wander too far. The family grew terrified. Curtains were pulled tight. Lights stayed on through the night. Every creak of the house, every shadow outside the window, felt like proof that someone was out there. The police were called, but there was no evidence. No fingerprints. No camera ever caught the sender. The neighbours were questioned, but nothing suspicious was ever found. After months of fear, Derek and Maria could no longer live there. They abandoned their dream home, leaving behind the echo of footsteps in empty halls and letters that still haunt them. To this day, The identity of the watcher remains a mystery. Was it a cruel neighbor, a stalker obsessed with the house, or something else entirely, something that never left those walls? One thing is certain: once the watcher sets eyes on you, you never feel safe again.